When I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Doni and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
my head up.
I'm South Carolina, so I just.
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Morris?
Oh, my heart.
Happy 20th anniversary.
My heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? John.
And dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself. There's a
the doctor lived next door to the janitor, to the reverend, and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Doni, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it all the more.
letting His glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover, entered the winner for the long haul baby. Today we have with us Mr. Akil Parker, born in Baltimore, living in Philadelphia. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Well, technically I was born in New York, but raised in Baltimore.
Born in New York, raised in Baltimore, living in Philly. You're just a mid-Atlantic, mid-East Coast cat, huh?
Exactly. All up and down 95.
All right. Life. So what's happening with you today? What's going on?
I want to promote this summer program I'm doing in Baltimore. Actually, I'm gonna be down in Baltimore for the summer, and yeah, we're doing a summer program for youth, for middle school age students as well as high school age students, and it's called the Histomatics Summer Camp or the Histomatics Summer Program. And basically, if anybody doesn't know what Histomatics is a teaching framework that I've been developing over the past few years, where we use Black history to teach mathematics. And vice versa, we also use mathematics to teach Black history and to allow people to gain a better understanding of history through the understanding of math and different algebra and arithmetic and geometry and whatnot. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually take different texts each week of the program, and we're going to analyze the text, do our critical reading thing. But I'm also going to use the different texts as math textbooks. So I'm going to use the autobiography of Malcolm X as a math textbook. I'm going to use Assata Shakur's autobiography as a math textbook. I'm going to use Black Power by Kwame Ture and Charles V. Hamilton as a math textbook. Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. We're going to use that as a math textbook. And also there's one more book, the biography of Marshall Eddie Conway, Black Panther from Baltimore. We're going to use his book as a math textbook in order to essentially teach math to the youth. I'm going to create math word problems because word problems are really the key to really understanding math and also understanding the relevancy of math in everyday life. Word problems, which is something that a lot of students shy away from. A lot of teachers actually shy away from trying to teach word problems. So we're going to try to address that. And, you know, so they'll learn the history and also learn the mathematics at the same time. So that's what we got going on in the summer for 5 weeks from July 8th until August the 9th. We're going to go on some historical field trips every Friday. And it's a free program. You know, we're giving out some stipends to the young people. So we're only taking like 20 middle school age students and 20 high school age students. But you got to be only stipulation is you got to be a resident of Baltimore. And there's an application. I can put the link to the application in the chat at some point. But and also there's an application. If you go to my social media, you can find the flyer, which has the link to the application on there. You know. So yes, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to, you know, provide solutions, you know, to some of the problems that we have in our community that stem from a lack of education, lack of understanding, lack of self-knowledge and self-awareness, a lack of mathematical understanding, so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to meet the people where they are, meet the young people where they are, so that things can improve, for themselves individually and also for the community overall, since the young people are a part of the community. So that's one of the things we got going on in the forefront of all this math, among all the other work that we're doing,
So what is all this math? How'd you start it? How'd it come about?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, it started technically in 2017 as basically just a math tutoring business. As a math teacher, I've been a high school math teacher since 2005. And, when you're a high school math teacher or just a math teacher in general, people always asking you to can you tutor my child? Can you, get them some SAT prep or something like that? So I used to just, tutor on the side. I used to, just help people out, volunteer. I used to volunteer at libraries, in and around Philly, do the different SAT prep programs. But I decided to make it a more official business, and stop treating the business like a hustle and started treating the business like a business. So I started it as a math tutoring business, and then it kind of just started to expand. And then I also wanted to get into educational consulting, wanted to get into teacher coaching and teacher training, and also create resources for the community. So all this math started as a tutoring company. And now we still do tutoring. We still do a lot of virtual tutoring, but we also do consulting work, and we also provide resources. We will be creating some curriculum going forward. That's definitely needed. And even like hystematics, like I mentioned earlier, is a teaching framework. We'll be developing curriculum based on hystematics in the future as well, so the children can, understand history and mathematics at the same time, and also make math more relevant because there'll be a story behind it. We can connect, different equations to our historical experience. And also, generally speaking, all this math is a movement to overall improve the relationship between mathematics and the Black community at large. Because many of our people, we run away from the math because of our experiences that we might have had in school, or, just looking at, different media and how math is presented and portrayed to us in TV shows and movies and on songs and whatnot and social media. We run away from the math, but I want for our people to run towards it and use it as the tool that it is, as the viable tool it is, so we can help to solve some of our problems,
Okay, so I've been in love with this book since I was 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to use this book here, the autobiography of Malcolm X, to teach math?
Okay. So, we read through the book, and then anything that's involved in anything that involves any numbers, any quantitative analysis, we can use to create math problems. For example, we can say, I would say to the young people, and this would be a lesson in terms of dealing with negative numbers, negative integers. If we talk about, what year was Malcolm X born, right? We know he was born in 1925, right? May 19th, 1925. So I say to the young people, I say, how old were you when Malcolm X was born? Now, the young people would probably look at me very strange and say, well, what do you mean, how old was I when Malcolm X was born? I wasn't born when Malcolm X was born. So how could I have an age when Malcolm X was born? But what I'm doing is I'm trying to get them to think in a more abstract way in terms of dealing with the number line and negative numbers. So let's say there's a youngin', 2024, let's say they're 14. They were born in the year 2010. All right, so you got a young person in the summer program. They're born in the year 2010, and then they say, okay, well, if you have a number line that represents your lifespan, on that number line, the year 2010 is your zero. That's your zero. That's why in 2024 you're 14 right now, because 0 plus 14 years after 2010, you are 14 years old. But you can also go the other direction to the negative side of the number line. So you say, okay, well, the question becomes, if I want to know how old they were the year that Malcolm X was born, I say, okay, well, how far is the year 2010 from the year 1925? And then you do that math, and there's different ways you could do that. You might say, okay, well, let's deal with numbers that end in zero. So let's say, what's the difference between the year 2000 and 1925? That's a 75-year difference, right? And then we say, okay, what's the difference between the year 2000 and the year 2010? That's a 10-year difference. So then you can combine those differences. And this is actually a method, and this gets into the so-called new math, that a lot of parents hate and are uncomfortable by, which makes sense because a lot of schools introduce these new math instructional techniques without also teaching the parents, how to do it. So when the children come home with the homework, they don't know how to help their children, and it creates a lot of frustration in the household. So it's another thing we address. This is called the combined differences method. So you add the 75 plus the 10, you get 85. So the young person can say, oh, I was negative 85 years old when Malcolm X was born.
So tell me more about this new math, because the thing is, truthfully, math doesn't change. There's nothing new.
Nothing new under the sun.
So what is new math?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, the fact that math doesn't change, because really it's a misnomer. The term itself is a misnomer, right? There's no new math.
Just like chemistry. Chemistry, the elements are there.
Right. Unless some chemists, get together and make some new discoveries and maybe discover some new elements, or they find some ways to modify some of the theories, which does happen from time to time. But with math, it's pretty consistent. It's pretty consistent. The math has been pretty consistent over time. So it is a misnomer, but it's meant to describe different instructional techniques. But what I want people to understand is that this so-called new math is really just a way to explain why a lot of the algorithms that we learned 30 and 40 years ago, like I remember being in elementary school at Roland Park and then middle school at Roland Park. And, a lot of the algorithms that we got fed, which was cool. We learned algorithms, we learned formulas, we learned processes. But a lot of times I didn't understand why those algorithms worked. I didn't know why they worked. I just memorized them. So when I was back in the day doing math problems, I looked at it like playing video games. My whole goal is just to get to the answer and then go on to the next problem. But if you asked me, well, why does this work? What's the concept behind this? Or what's the relationship between these numbers, or between this step 1 and step 2? I really couldn't tell you. So what the new so-called new math is meant to do is really give students a fundamental understanding of the concept, right? The concept of math. And that's how you really are able to develop even more of an appreciation for math, and then be able to see for yourself, oh, I can see how I can apply this in some other areas outside of this classroom, or beyond just this particular problem and example that my teacher just gave us on the board, right? When you really understand the concept. But here's the caveat. The caveat is it's got to be taught properly. And a lot of times they're trained and then they can't really communicate what the new math is supposed to do. They can't really communicate that conceptual understanding to the students, and it's also a lot of, other challenges in the classroom as well, where you may not have conducive learning environments where people can really pick up on it. So to your question, again, new math is a misnomer, but that's what people are calling it. So that's where I meet people where they at. So if they want to call it new math, we can call it new math, but I just want you to know that it's really more so just different instructional techniques. Because a lot of it, when I think about it, I think back to, again, growing up, going to public school and going to summer programs, that dealt with math. And the summer programs, they might have been, held at these colleges and whatnot. And they were doing that so-called new math back then. And then when I came in contact with peers that might have went to private schools, they might have been being exposed to that 30 years ago themselves already. But in public school, we may not have been getting that.
Let me jump in here, Akil.
Go ahead.
I'm in Atlanta. I'm at Morehouse College. I'm taking a physical science class over at Clark University.
Mm-hmm.
White professor. He starts talking. And I start getting mad. I start getting mad because here's this white professor saying to me, in Atlanta University, 5 black colleges, he's telling me that the Greeks developed the principles of math and science. And I'm saying to myself, I'm paying, and this is 1983, I think tuition at Morehouse was about $8,000 a year, which was huge. I think now it's 40, 50. I'm angry because I'm paying all of this money for a white professor to tell me a lie while I'm attending Morehouse. Years later, I'm at Morgan State University. Same scenario. White professor, his name was Overton, was telling me that the Greeks had the first civilization. And I'm saying to myself, well, I don't know what you call civilization, but if the Greeks, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, if these cats studied in Egypt, which to this day has perfect pyramids, how in the hell could they have developed the Pythagorean theorem, renamed, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared?
Mm-hmm.
The quadratic equation, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Right triangles, isosceles. How in the world could this fool expect me, or these fools expect me to believe this hocus pocus? And even more importantly, why isn't anybody saying anything about this?
Well, first, I'm glad that, when you were at Morehouse, at a young age, that you had the awareness and the, I guess some people might call it gumption to even be angry. Pissed. Yeah, because I'm sure a lot of your classmates weren't pissed. So a lot of your classmates probably said, yeah, they wasn't thinking about it. Exactly. It's important to, have an awareness, have a historical awareness. And that's another reason why, I'm pushing forward this teaching methodology of histomatics to connect history to math, because there's a lot of historical revisionism that goes on. And that is an example of historical revisionism, and, the European community, white community, attempting to start history with themselves, right? But if we have a more accurate view of history, of the history of the world, then we know that, and this is well documented through science, that the first human beings were African. Those different systems and those different methods and those different, topics and, things were all already being done in ancient African societies, right? So, it's kind of similar to when you see a movie about ancient Egypt and everybody in the movie is white, but again, I think we also got
everybody want our culture, but they don't want our struggle. When I watched, you went there. I watched the 10 Commandments and I see Charlton Heston. It's like, dude, ain't no way you gonna stay white in that desert. I done been to the Sahara. Actually, I flew over it, and it was a 3-hour flight. You walk that desert, you're gonna be black.
Well, I think the thing is too, is like, we got to consider what the audience is like, that message is a certain type of propaganda that's for them, is to, boost their self-esteem. The problem lies in
a lie. That's not self-esteem.
Some people build up their self-esteem based off a lie, but the real problem is that we don't have enough of the institutions to teach our own children the truth. And that's what we got to do. That's the work that we got to do on a constant daily basis, is tell our children the truth. If they want to lie to their kids, hey, that's on y'all. But over here, we got to be telling our children.
If I knew at Poly in the 9th grade that people who developed the Pythagorean theorem look like me, I'm almost sure I would have had a different perspective. Even more so before we even got to Poly. If they were teaching us that in junior high school, that was what I was also a little mad at, that going to Lamel, where you had to have a nice jab. You had to fight every day. For me, I don't know. But these white kids at Poly, when I got there, had already been exposed to more math than I had been at Lamel. Mm-hmm. And it just made me wonder, who doesn't see the need to start teaching algebra in elementary school? It's not like our kids can't think. As much money as we spend on video games, we should be the master creators of video games. All of that is, from my understanding, zeros and ones.
Computer science. Yeah, computer science coding. Yeah. Well,
Why?
you know,
so with a state like Maryland, with a black governor, is that something that ought to be doable? Getting our teachers to implement more Black history across the board.
well, we do need more Black history, but at the same time, we got to
In
consider
conjunction with the math, this is still matters.
Yeah, definitely. But when we talk about Black history, we got to think about what is the end goal for the Black history. A lot of the Black history that we often get is really just an attempt to prove, unfortunately, to prove to white people that we're human and that they should respect our humanity.
Prove anything to them. Come on, man. I live in Sandtown. Do you know,
I know
what
you
I
might
see on
not
a regular basis? I see white people buy more dope here than anybody else. So please take that on down the road somewhere.
So I know you might not be doing that, but what I'm saying is when it gets to school curriculums and it gets to a lot of programming that is funded, you know, that people throw money behind, it becomes an issue of Negro assimilationism and just, you know, we were the first person to do this in this place, in this white controlled space. So this Black person was the first person to do this. But so again, we're still using, it's what a lot of that type of Black history does is it still reinforces this idea that we are still inferior, and that because we're measuring, right?
Here's the thing. See, if you know history, you know the oldest DNA comes from the San Bushmen in Namibia. They have the oldest DNA on Earth. Everybody traced their roots. So how in the world could someone younger than me be smarter than me? How could my great grandchild tell me anything?
Well, you might have lost your memory. You may not have the momentum of, like Dr. Carr down at Howard always says, the momentum of memory. A lot of us don't have our memory. So the old, you know, like, I mean, think about it, with that analogy, a lot of elders, you know, become senile. They may develop dementia, you know, and you forget. Even though you were there first, you may forget. And that's another problem we have. But that's why we got to teach the history so we don't lose our memory, so we don't lose that momentum of memory. We got to have that memory, and we got to teach that on a regular basis. But, you know, the history that's being taught, what it needs to do is affirm our humanity, our rightful place in history, right? You know, as you know, Dr. Morrison here has commented, public schools do not promote liberatory African-centered education, right? Because they're not, you know, public schools aren't meant to do that. That's not what public schools are for. Public schools are meant to maintain the status quo. I think about, you know, this part of the conversation makes me think about Amos Wilson. And one of the things that he would often echo was that in order for America to maintain itself, in order for white supremacy to exist, Black people have to collectively, we have to collectively be out of our minds. And the only way for us to be out of our minds is for us to be conditioned and trained to be out of our minds. And we got to be in institutions that cause us to be out of our minds. So again, it always goes back to institution building, programming, which is why I'm doing this program this summer, because I'm trying to get us to not be out of our minds, right? So that's why I'm doing this systematic summer program, you know, so we can have, you know, some of our youth, and then those youth, even though it's only going to be 40 of them total, 20 middle school students, 20 high school students, they will be the ambassadors that then go out into the community, and, you know, hopefully in their communities, they'll be having some different conversations with the people that weren't in the program.
Is there a virtual component?
There's no virtual component. This is going to be in person. This program this summer is going to be in person. Yeah, but there will
more people if it were.
Yeah, I'm sure it would, and that's something we're considering for the future. You know, because this isn't going to be a one and done thing. This is something that, you know, is going to be, you know, a mainstay in the community. This is something I'm going to just be doing more and more of.
Were you in Baltimore when they had this show that came on like 5 a.m. as a white lady teacher, and she would teach letters and words and math, basic stuff? You remember that show?
I probably wasn't up. I don't think I was ever up at 5 a.m. when I Earliest
It
I might
might
have got
be
up at
before
6.
your time because I'm
Yeah.
what 58. What you like 38?
Nah, I'll be 44 next month.
Okay, well you ain't that far behind. There was this show that came on like 5 in the morning, Sunday morning, sometime maybe Saturday morning. It was a white lady, and she had to be a great person, but she would teach reading, she would teach math, just basic fundamental things, and it just baffles me that in all of our technology, all of this streaming, there should be, and especially given the violence, the propensity for violence in our cities, New York, Philly, Baltimore, that we've talked about, that there's nothing on television, and maybe I've just missed it, that teaches math 24. We should have math on television 24 hours a day. English on TV 24 hours a day. There should be probably a substance abuse class, network, 24 hours a day.
I got a theory about that.
For the basic stuff we need. But we got the dumbest stuff like TikTok.
I got a theory about that.
Come on with it.
So, especially speaking of mathematics, right? When we really understand math, we start to understand what math really is and what its definition is, right? Math is really a system deeper than the equations that are on the board, deeper than, just what the Pythagorean theorem says, so-called Pythagorean theorem, because as you mentioned, Pythagoras studied in ancient Kemet, under our ancestors.
He stole it.
Right. But deeper than, all the formulas, math
ain't
is
got
really
that pyramid over there.
None. Math is a system for developing problem-solving skills, right? So if you talk about problem-solving skills and what that means to the society, to the status quo, and we live in an oppressive, neo-colonial, capitalistic system, right, where there must be oppression, right? You got to have a few haves and a whole bunch of have-nots, right? So there's a zero-sum game where for every problem that I have, there is someone or some entity benefiting from that problem. So the moment that I solve my problem, now I have created a problem for the entity that was benefiting from my problem, because now I've removed their benefit by removing my problem. I've done two things simultaneously. I've removed my problem and I also removed their benefit. So then it would behoove, if that's the premise that we act upon, that we accept, then it would behoove those that control the society to make sure masses of people never learn a subject and also fear a subject and run away from a subject that's going to enable them ultimately to be able to solve their problems. Because once you solve your problem, you're going to create a problem for me. So I got to, so we know, so I don't want, so they don't want, no, we should still do it. We should still do it, but we got to understand why it's an uphill fight. We understand it's an uphill fight because those that are in control, they don't want everybody learning math.
But they black. Let me get this in, Akil. Mm-hmm. Baltimore Collegiate School for boys. Yep. Edwin Avent. Mm-hmm. Beautiful school. We all know what's happening in Baltimore. We all know that the likelihood of a young black man from a city like Philly, Baltimore, New York City is faced with disproportionate challenges where he is 5 times more likely to get arrested than his white counterpart, even with a notebook in his hand. We know these disparities. Edwin Avent catches flack from a school system headed by a black woman, Dr. Sonia Santelice. They use our own people against us. Anybody that goes in that school can see there's order, there's respect, there's discipline, there's decency, there's food. The young men look nice, they look the part. Why in the world would a school system headed by a black woman CEO be attacking someone who's clearly saving lives by the second?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, there's a long history of that. There's a long history of that. Us, our own people being weaponized against us. I wish I knew more of the details of
Let me give you this detail. You ever heard of Planned Parenthood? It's some basic math. Planned Parenthood is responsible for the killing of more black people than any entity on earth. But they'll put a black woman CEO in charge of it and make everybody feel a little better. When the founder of Planned Parenthood, because we don't like to do our history, as you pointed, her name was Margaret Sanger. And she said that black people are like weeds and need to be exterminated. But they put a black woman CEO in charge of it, and all of a sudden everything is fine. Don't believe me? Go look it up. Now they want to take it over to Africa and expand it. They will tell you this is about women's health care. No, it's about killing black babies. You see, they outlawed abortion in America. You do math. Who reproduces the most in America? Black, whites, or Latinos?
I would say it's got to be the blacks or Latinos.
Latinos. They done surged past us in population. And that's where we got these smartphones that we don't even know how to use. You can get so much information off these damn things. But the Latinos have shot right on past us. And they have reinforcements coming. Because if you remember, they don't want black immigrants. If you saw the Haitians crossing the border during the Trump administration, they were met by men on horsebacks.
Down by Mexico, right?
Mexico. They let anybody come in, but not the blacks. Especially not from Haiti. Oh my God, they just the strongest black people in the Western Hemisphere. There's no way on earth they're gonna let them up in here.
I remember that from the 1980s as well, and all that negative propaganda about Haitians. You know,
same with Brazil. Brazil, we have 44 million black people in the U.S. At least 100 million in Brazil. So they stopped letting the Africans come in and started bringing in more and more whites to kind of try to balance it out. But the thing is, you can't get away from those reproductive variables.
But you bring up, you mentioned technology, and you just picked up a cell phone. I also want us to understand that the presence of technology and the accessibility also kind of leads to our collective, standoffishness towards developing math skills. Because a lot of people will make the claim that I don't need to learn this, and I don't need to be able to do this on my own because I have an iPhone that can do it for me.
What about when the battery dies?
Well, that's one thing, the battery might die, but even if the battery doesn't die, it's an issue of, agency, not being a person that desires to have agency or wanted to know how to do something. Like, I use this analogy. Like, I know how to change a flat tire. Unfortunately, I've had to change a lot of flat tires since I started driving at 16. Right. But I also pay for auto insurance. And as a consequence of having auto insurance, I got roadside assistance. So I might not feel like changing the flat tire. So I might call State Farm or whoever, and call the roadside assistance so they can come change the flat tire. Right. But I still know how to do it. But there are people that feel like, well, I don't even need to know how to do it. I'm going to just get somebody else to do it. I'm going to use my phone to do it. And I think that that's also just a certain type of, it's part of the socialization process. And we've also allowed our children and ourselves, and many times as adults, to equate a lack of ability with luxury, right? Because some people will say, well, I don't need to know how to do that. I can pay somebody to do that. And sure, that might be nice and convenient to be able to pay someone to do something for you. But it's really not due to the bigger issue is the fact that you don't know how to do it. It's a necessity. Like, it's a necessity. You have to pay somebody to do it, or else it just won't get done. As opposed to you just saying, well, am I just trying to support the economy? Am I just trying to support this person's business, or am I just stuck and I have no other option but to pay somebody to do it because I don't know how to do it? And with math, it's like it's a similar situation. Like, a lot of us, we never learn the math, and I think this is by design. And this is the thing that has to change, right? We have to start developing our math skills and start to understand what math really is, a system which helps us to develop problem solving ability and also develop our critical thinking skills and our analytical ability, which are transferable skills into any situation. I mean, you could be having a dispute or, a conflict with your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, supervisor at your job, somebody in traffic. somebody, a cashier at the grocery store, wherever. When you know how to solve problems and you know how to approach problems and conflicts in a systematic way, oftentimes, I mean, you may not always make the right decision, but at least you know what the right decision is. You're going to know how to get to the right decision. And a lot of us, we don't understand that comes from, but those are skills that can be developed in math classes, whether it's algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, trigonometry, calculus, pre-calculus, whatever, even arithmetic in elementary school, because, when you're solving equations, you're following a step-by-step process. And the laws of mathematics are universal laws. They're universal rules. I mean, we talked about ancient Kemet and Pythagoras and all that. When we solve equations, we're dealing with the truth. We're dealing with reciprocity, dealing with reciprocals and multiplying by fractions that are reciprocals of each other. We're dealing with balance. We solve an equation. Whatever I do on the left side of the equation, I need to also do on the right side of the equation. All these different types of things. When we solve an equation, we say, well, x equals 5. Okay, if that's true, then I should be able to take that 5 and replace the variable from the initial equation, and I should end up with a true statement. The left side should equal the right side. Just like when we know somebody lying to us, one of the things we often say is something ain't adding up. Somebody lying. Somebody's frauding right now, right? So all these things, that are embedded within mathematics and within algebra and everything are just, they're ways to really develop us as people and develop us as individuals so we can be, successful and, productive members of society. So
look here, Akil. I got to jump because I see you don't take no breathers. Look, here's a word problem for you.
Uh-huh.
Black president invites all black people to the Capitol to storm the Capitol, including climbing the walls. How many black people died?
All of them.
White man calls all of his followers to the Capitol to storm the Capitol. 5 people died. How much time does he get?
He ain't get none.
Well, that's not equitable.
It's not at all. But here's the thing I think I want us to understand is that it's very much on brand for the United States of America. The United States of America was never intended to be equitable. It never has been equitable. And I doubt that it ever will be equitable.
I don't doubt that. I doubt that. I think so many Klansmen are going to have mixed children over the next 50 years that racism is going to take care of itself.
I don't know about that, Donnie. I don't know if that takes care of racism. Because what you got there is you just, you create you could do what happened in, a lot of nations like South Africa had a colored class, a buffer class between the blacks and the whites, which was just essentially that was a political movement. Just like when the nations go and colonize, when they colonize, it's a militaristic and political move to rape the women, to create that buffer class. Because in that buffer class,
that's what kills me about these men running around with their pants down. I'm in New York City Saturday. Dude's pants were around his knees. I'm like, what invitation are you sending, black man?
It just seems uncomfortable. I don't know. It don't seem too fashionable to me, And how you gonna run? I'm always nervous. Like I might need to run somewhere. Like my pants are down too low. I can't run. The laws of physics, indicate that I won't be able to run.
What role do parents play in this whole process from your perspective? And I say this to you. I pose this to you at a time when we have 70% single mother households in the black community.
I'm glad you bring that up because that's another part of our work and our initiatives at All This Math, which is to equip parents to be able to have education start in the home.
70% of the daddies, though, are not in the house.
Okay. So even so with that 30%, we can work with the 30%,
No, what about the 70%?
Well, even the 70%, I mean, if they're available, well, if they're two-parent house, if there are co-parenting formations that are in place, and there's the single parent household, the single mother, but then there's a single father in another household, and if the child is split in time between households, My thing is we can work with all the parents. We got to work with all the parents. We got to equip the parents to be able to teach math.
The parents on TikTok, bruh.
That's true. That's true. You know why? Because TikTok has a multi-billion-dollar marketing machine behind it, and TikTok is very accessible. And I mean, I use TikTok. I mean, I'm gonna start putting more content on TikTok. You got to meet the people where they are, right? Now, of course, there's a whole lot of nonsense on TikTok. You know, especially the TikTok that's allowed in the United States. A whole lot of nonsense. But again, what we got to do is we
get caught up in it deep.
We do. I mean, it's like a drug. I mean, the phone itself, the smartphone is a drug. It's like dope. You get caught, as they say, on Instagram, you get caught up in the scroll, and sometimes it's hard to put it down, even for me. But we gotta first own and recognize that. Sometimes you gotta put your phone down. You know, gotta put your phone down, right? But also you gotta be more structured in terms of, you know, what you're doing with your time and everything. But what my point is that we got to be able to teach the parents. Well, you know, in terms of my work, we got to be able to teach the parents math so that they can actually teach their children math and prepare their children for the classroom. Because historically, we have been conditioned to completely outsource the teaching of math to our children by just send them to school, right? And that's what the schools actually want, right? But our children are not prepared for math class. They got to be prepared for math class. They got to have a certain foundation. They got to bring some stuff to the table. A lot of children going into school with not bringing enough to the table. So that's why when they get to school, they can't catch on. They can't hit the ground running. And they get, it's like they never been, it's like somebody going into the gym and you're going to spar with Tank Davis. You never even put on boxing gloves before a day in your life. You're going to
get knocked out.
This is what our children are experiencing in math classes all over the country. So that's what we got to teach the parents, because a lot of the parents were just kids that never learned math 30, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And then they have children and now they can't help their children with homework. It's not because black parents don't want to help, you know, children with homework, or black parents don't care about education. That's not the case. Is that they're not equipped. So we gotta equip them. We gotta equip them. And that's some other programming that we're offering as well. You know, with parent workshops, especially you mentioned the new math earlier. You're gonna be teaching the new math, the so-called new math, because I told you it's a misnomer. That new math is not really a thing, you know. But if we want to call it that, we can call it that for all intents and purposes, you know. But yeah, but we gotta teach the parents have to become, so we got to reorient ourselves in terms of, instead of parents being expected to supplement what the school is offering to the children, the school has to be able to supplement. We got to flip the relationship, flip the positions. The school has to supplement what the parents want for their children. And parents do have to do this. Parents have to stand up and say, listen, this is what I want my children to learn. This is what I want my children to know. And then they have to then say, we got to have our own curriculum in our own household. And my book, and I got resources for the community. So we already know about my YouTube channel. Your YouTube channel, you can go on there. It's a free resource. As long as you got Wi-Fi, you can look at it right on your phone. We got like almost 700 videos, content for all levels, from arithmetic all the way up to calculus 1. So we got that. But then I wrote a whole book, right? This book right here, How to Use All This Math, Volume 1, which is a resource for parents. So you can prepare your children for math class with everyday activities. Like we talked about, you know, autobiography of Malcolm X, figuring out a child figuring out their negative age. That's outlined in this book. That's one of the chapters. You know, and different things you could do, like unit conversions. Every time you pick up a bag of chips and it's got the measure, it's got the weight on it. You know, it's got the British system and it's got the metric system on it. So we can do unit conversions. Like, for example, if you know, a bottle of water bottle is 500 milliliters. It's also 16.9 ounces. So just from that information right there, you can create like 100 math problems of doing unit conversions. So they don't got to wait till they get to a chemistry class in 10th grade. They could do that in the house at age 6 or age 7. And I outline that in the book too, just to let you know, like, listen, this is what we can do. We don't got to wait for the schools. We don't got to do none of that. So if we don't like, you know, the leadership at city schools, if you're in Baltimore, cool. We can make them people irrelevant. If you don't like how them people doing what they're doing, make them irrelevant. So I'm creating resources so our people can win. I want black people to win, but we can't win without resources. You know, like if we're a team, we got to have resources. We got to have tools. We got to have our equipment. We got to have what we need. So How to Use All This Math, Volume 1 is another resource. Just like the summer program, You know, in the summer program, we're gonna be talking about history. We're gonna be talking about Malcolm X, Assata Shakur, Kwame Ture, Grand Marshal Eddie Conway, Carter G. Woodson, his work. We're gonna be talking about all these things and learning math at the same time. You're learning math at the same time. So it's gonna be
you gotta throw some black scientists in there, man.
That's probably gonna be in the next iteration because the program is also gonna be during the school year on Saturdays, But I mean, that's gonna come up though. Also, that's gonna come up.
Saturday school. Baltimore needs Saturday school.
Yeah, it does. We all do. We don't get enough. We don't get enough, especially now when you consider that a lot of schools aren't giving homework. I'm like, I don't know how we gonna win without homework. I mean, you can't win.
What do you say to the people who say this? And this is something that rocks my nerves. Not everybody going to college.
So,
let me add this in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this push to get more of our people into carpentry, electricity, electronics, being an electrician, roofing, building trades, etc. But they ain't got to go to college. So I take carpentry and I learn how to frame a house, build a house. What about the business? You still got to count your money. You still got to understand interest versus compound interest, how to sign your name. What do you think when you hear people say that not everybody's going to college and they make a justification for the same young man who I see riding up Pennsylvania Avenue, popping a wheelie with one hand, blindfolded, turn around backwards, and don't hit nothing? But you telling me he can't go to college, but as soon as he get locked up, he got to take classes.
So it's a few things.
He's opened the school inside the jail where there's a captive audience.
Mm-hmm.
What in the hell happened? There was a time where our ancestors who were enslaved could not read. To learn how to read was punishable by death. What in the hell happened to us, Akil? What in the hell happened to us?
Well, to your first question about people making that comment, I think that usually that's a response to an economic condition. I think people say that college isn't a large portion of the time. People say college is not for everybody when they don't feel like they have the financial means, and the student may not have the grades to earn scholarships. Right?
Time out. You put a $200 belt on this kid, and this kid can't deliver in the classroom.
Well, I mean, it's an issue of.
I ain't finished. I got one more question for you. Prom time get ready to come up. Prom time get ready to come up. And I don't care who don't like it. You ain't paying my damn bills. Prom time about to come up. Black people gonna have all of these damn parties, buy a $3,000 outfit, got a helicopter coming, and the kid ain't even going to college. What do you think about this? All this math, professor?
Well, I think a lot of things about that. One of the things I think is that, I mean, it's easier to do that than to, being a good student and developing your child to be a good student is long-term and protracted work. It's about consistency. You gotta be consistent with that. I mean, if I'm trying to get ready for the prom, I just gotta like stack some money for like maybe a month, maybe a few weeks, a couple months, and then and it's like it's seen as fun, So that's like it's fun to play dress up, especially because and also, but the bigger issue is I'm all about I always look at the conditioning, like a lot of our people, again, due to the institutions that we've been conditioned and socialized by, we think that makes sense. We think that it makes more sense. So what I do is, so I'm of the school of thought, or I'm in the position where, as opposed, while I think personal responsibility is important, since I know better, I try to create institutions and programming where I can reprogram people to think differently, because the person that does that spends that large amount of money. They've been conditioned and socialized to believe that that should be a higher priority. Somewhere they learned that. They learned that somewhere, right? So I think it has to be unlearned, and I think something different has to be put in the place of it, right? So that's where I put my energy. I put my energy in trying to socialize people in different ways, right? That's one part of it. The other part of it is, for a lot of our people, because what do they call it? Nihilism, right? There's this it's existentialism, whatever the term is. I remember learning about that at Poly, existentialism, and Albert Camus and all them. This belief that basically like the only purpose of living is to die, right? A lot of people don't look forward to the future. So on some level, I think some Black people feel like, my baby is graduating from high school, my baby's going to the prom, like this might be it. This might be all we got. So if I believe that this is all we got, and this is going to be the height and the pinnacle of their existence, or it might be the height or the pinnacle of my existence as a parent, because I feel like my daughter is 18 now, my son is 18 now. We've been through so much, and it was such a challenge, and we had to do this and that. So we're going to celebrate. And on a certain level, in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with celebrating. I just think that relatively speaking to what other things that are going on, maybe that shouldn't be prioritized as much. But to the person that feel like, my son might not see 21. My daughter might not, this might be that she might peak. This might be the peak of her existence right now at the age 18. If people
you're talking about fatalism, you're talking about fatalism.
Yeah, if they really believe that
I'm going to die at 21.
Then it starts to make sense. Like, okay, well, you know what? Yeah, let's go all out. Let's go all out for this prom, because this is all we got. Right?
Dude, let me tell you something. I was glad just to get to the damn prom. Ain't need no Hummer, stretch limo, no helicopters. We were just glad to get in the door.
Yeah, good.
Let's wrap this thing on up, Akil. I'm gonna give you the screen. You tell them what you want, okay?
Yeah, I tried to put in my the link to the application to the Histomatic summer program in the chat, but it wouldn't allow me to post it.
Put it in the comments.
Yeah, that's what I did. I typed it in the comments with the website.
Go put it in the private chat. I'll put it up.
Private chat. All right, let me do that. www. So definitely follow us at All This Math on all the socials. All right. Instagram, TikTok. I know Donnie don't like TikTok, but we're on TikTok too, because we gotta go where the people are. The people on TikTok.
No, I get mad love on TikTok, but okay. I'm just baffled seeing all of these grown people. And my God, tell these people put some damn clothes on. Children are watching. I mean, damn, just you see more high parts on social media than you do where they ought to be. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, let me give you my my YouTube channel too, because I want everybody going to the YouTube channel. I'm telling you, like I really.
Oh, here's Irvin Reed. I'm surprised he didn't chime in. He's a big time mathematician. You know Irvin Reed?
I don't know the brother. Is he in Baltimore?
He's from Baltimore, but he escaped to Prince George's County.
Okay, he's down in PG. He's a Pajarian now. Okay.
Is that what they call him?
That's what we used to call him when I was in Morgan. Pajarians.
Irvin Reed, you're a Pajarian.
That's just the creativity of Black folks. I love it. I love our people because we're so creative. We're such a creative people. But yeah, definitely follow us on YouTube. Also, use the YouTube channel. It's basically free math tutoring. We got, like I said, almost 700 videos. I go very in depth. Now, here's the thing. Two things about the YouTube channel I want to highlight. One of the things is that I've been teaching for a long time, so I already know the mistakes the students are going to make. I know what parts are going to confuse them. I know what they're not going to understand. So I embedded into my lectures or my explanation is explanations of those mistakes before you can even make the mistake. It's kind of like the salesman. The good salesperson knows why you're going to tell them, no, I can't afford this. And they're going to incorporate that into the sales pitch. So you don't even get a chance to make the rebuttal. right? That's what the good salesperson does, the experienced salesperson. So with math, I'm an experienced math teacher. So I'm already going to embed into the lesson the part that I know there's a strong chance you're not going to understand. So I'm going to put that in there. The other thing is, when you listen to me teach on this YouTube channel, I'm going to make you feel like you can learn this. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times there are a lot of math teachers that know a whole lot of math, been doing math for years. They're brilliant people, brilliant math scholars. But when they talk, they make people feel like they're not smart enough to understand math. And
I felt that at Poly, Shawty. I felt that at Poly.
I had teachers at Poly like that too.
Yeah, this is way above you. You can't handle this. And that's what I'm saying. It was almost like it was a deterrent. A black teacher told me this later, that it was a deterrent meant to get black students out of Poly. Now, of course, you know, Poly is heavily black now. But back then, dude, we were like 20% up there in Poly.
So the way I look at it is, and I want to do a PD about this at schools, you know, because you know how like when we was young, it used to be a flex to go to the board and be able to do math problems that your classmates couldn't do, right? That was a flex for us to do that. What I realized is that there are a lot of teachers, a lot of math teachers that never outgrew that. It's like you a whole math teacher and you still want to be up at the board flexing on students and making them feel like you're smarter than them. And there's a certain way,
as opposed to inspiring them to want to surpass you. I mean,
like a coach, like a good coach. A good coach makes their players feel like you can be as good as me or better than me.
Kind of like these politicians who've been in office for 10, 20, 30 years and never groomed another person to take their place.
It's very, very similar. Very similar. Very similar.
Pass the ball, Dodo.
Mike Cheyney says maybe you could teach parents. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. I want parents to be able to teach their own kids. That's what I want for our people. Because we gotta have that family connection. We gotta reinstill that family bond where a child can come home. And think about what it does for the child's mental health. To sit in a math class in high school or middle school
goes through the roof.
Yeah, sit in a class as a middle school student, high school student, even if you don't understand what's going on the board in the class, but you know, okay, you know what? When I get home, my dad gonna take care of me. When I get home, my mom gonna take care of me. When I get home, my grandma, my grandpa, my auntie, my uncle, they're gonna take care of me because they know how to do algebra 2. They know how to do trigonometry. They know calculus, right? So this is another thing we're trying to do. That's why we're trying to work with the parents, not just the youth, but the parents too, because we want the parents to be able to help their children. That's what we want. And I'm gonna tell you, maybe I'll come back another time because that is something that's going to lead to a decrease.
You're supposed to have a show. You're supposed to have a show on our network. We pitched this to you a couple of years back, and Michael Haney, by the way, is a big time sponsor of this whole network. So we got shows from Oakland, New York, other states. It's about time we get a show from Philadelphia. I mean,
we'll talk about it.
By the way, did you know they're about to honor Frankie Beverly in your city?
No, I didn't know that.
BeMoreNews.com, baby. We got Philly news. Y'all ain't even got BeMoreNews.com, baby boy.
But yeah, Donnie, thanks for having me on again. And to the people watching, please, if you're in Baltimore, you're looking for an opportunity for your children, middle school age, high school age, Systematic Summer Program. They're gonna learn some math. They're gonna learn how to solve word problems, and they're gonna learn some of their Black history all at the same time, right? 5 weeks, July 8th to August 9th, field trips every Friday.
How much?
Free. And they actually get paid. They're getting paid. They're gonna get a stipend at the end. And we got bus passes. It's lit. We got bus passes too, and we giving out bus passes. You can ride the MTA if you need to. If you don't got to ride, you know, we looking out for the community. I'm serious. I want Black people to win, and this is in conjunction with the William J. Watkins Senior Educational Institute, and also we got a grant from Baltimore Children and Youth Fund to make all this possible. So shout out to them too.
Shout out to your family for their support of you, your kids, your wife. We're proud of you, Akil.
Well, it's no wife no more, but you know, I might have another wife sometime soon. We'll see.
Basic math, baby.
It's in the cards.
They do math.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. for joining us.
All right, brother. Appreciate it.
Up to day, down tomorrow. Do your day and everything will follow. Nothing to it but to do it. I got to do it regardless of how I feel. I am somebody. I am my brother's keeper. Good morning, world.